Hello everyone, and today I will be ranking each killer in Daybreak by just how evil or morally incorrect they are. I'm going to be ranking this with 5 tiers. These tiers are innocent, easily redeemable, some humanity, terrible, and devils incarnate.
All of this is going to be based off of the lore that's available both in the document and in game. I'm not going to be going after like headcanons or things like developers have said in the past because I don't want to filter through like millions of messages to find little pieces of lore.
This idea mostly came from one of my friends and someone named Azimovs on YouTube. If you want to check out their content, I definitely recommend it. This is kind of where the idea came from. A lot of this is inspired. I'm not trying to steal his work or whatever. And lastly, this is really opinionated and my opinion is correct, and if you disagree in the comments, then you're objectively wrong.
Anyways, that's about it for this intro, and let's get into it. I'm actually going to start off with 2 killers that I don't think I can actually rank correctly, just because it's getting into territory where I don't have the authority to be like telling you the morality or how evil something is. First off, we have the Unforgotten, which is more of a manifestation or like an idea of sorts. It's supposed to be the kind of personification of like negative thought or something, and I don't think I can decide whether a little like ghostly figure of an idea is morally correct or not. That's just not within my playing field. Secondly, we have the android, just because he's a robot. I can't really dictate what exactly defines him as evil or good or whatnot, because there's a lot of conflicting factors. Like, he's just a robot, he wants to do good, but also he's programmed, so there's really just a dead zone there where I can't really make a decision because he's just like kind of far out there compared to other killers.
Now with that out of the way, I can get into the first category, which is the innocent killers, or just the kind of like not really bad people kind of like area. Basically, it's just for killers who either were like really manipulated or like controlled by someone or the mist or whatever, or someone who just didn't actually do anything to be considered evil. First off, we have Janitor, who honestly he didn't do anything wrong. He was just a miserable person who got caught in the crossfire with the principal's little massacre at Lakeview High. He didn't do anything to really be considered a killer besides dying, I guess, and that's really about it when it comes to him. His lore is very straightforward. He doesn't have much like going on with him. Next we have the Void Skulk, which honestly she really didn't do too much either, like pretty much exactly like the Janitor. She went into some abandoned spaceship and there was some alien monster or disease or something along those lines. She gets infected with this disease and now her body's just kind of like taken control over. Her mind is not the same. She's just a husk of a human body, at least from like what I've read in the lore and just in game as well. She's not much of a person anymore. She's more of a pilot for this alien creature. The actual person, Tara or however you say her name, is completely innocent. She didn't do anything in life that like would convict her to being a killer-like person. But the alien is a different story. We don't know the motives. We don't know the logistics of this alien thing. So she's just an innocent person who was infected. That's about it.
Third on this list is the Possessed, and basically she's just Seyoung's lore, so pretty much a innocent person in general, but at the moment where she loses her grandmother and she decides to try and contact her, instead of summoning, I think, what is the mist with like kind of the blood or the ghost or something, she summons this sort of folklore creature of sorts that like takes control of her, and this kind of ghostly figure takes her body and she kills Jack Sato, which honestly was against her will. And once again, it's like Tara, where she doesn't have a free will at this point, and overall I think that kind of makes her more of an innocent figure because she's just some girl who got possessed, taken over, and she has no choice in whether she's possessed or not.
So yeah, she's basically just kind of not in control of her own body, so she's basically an innocent person. And that's it for the innocent category, and now we're going to be moving on to the easily redeemable category. Next we have like I said, the easily redeemable category. And they're just for killers who, they're inherently good, but they've still done fairly bad things, mostly like killing or, you know, something along those lines. But in the grand scheme of things, they are still they're still killers. And yeah, that's really about it. First off, in this category, we have the werewolf. And honestly, I feel like this was one of the easier picks in this entire category, especially considering, first off, he doesn't want to kill people. It's shown in a lot of his voice lines, his interactions, that he doesn't want to be hurting people. And honestly, it was against his will to be bitten, to be turned into a werewolf. He's just kind of giving into the urges of like killing and whatnot. He didn't even really kill anybody until Kyle's dad, which they changed in the lore and whatnot, like I think a couple months ago. But anyways, he's still just a good person. He's just kind of been forced into the lifestyle that he kind of took up because of the whole werewolf transformation thingy. Next we have the host, and she's really in the same boat as the Void Skulk in the fact that she was kind of infected by an outside source, and like her body's kind of taken control over. But she's a little bit like special in this, with that she actually killed somebody. It says that she killed one of her lab partners or whatever first, but they really didn't extend on how many people she killed. But that is still kind of a bad thing, even though it was against her will. It's a lot more than the people in the innocent category, which kind of, I think, pulls her out of that general region. Overall, she's a very innocent person, but she still murdered a lot of people, which kind of pushes her out of the way of, you know, like the possessed and werewolf and whatnot, just because she has a lot of a higher kill count than the rest of them. And the last killer in this category is the ghost. She is just some sort of party girl who is kidnapped one night, and she's killed in a basement. She was like chained up to walls or whatever, and like she tried escaping, but she was caught and just like murdered. And honestly, that doesn't really sound like too much, but she was turned into a ghost and then brought into the mist afterwards. And the only reason why she's even like outside of the innocent category is because both in game and in other lore, she seems to enjoy killing a lot, which is not exactly a great thing, you know. She sounds like she wants to be there. And in contrast to the other like 5 killers before her, they all are either not in control of their own body or do not have a free will anymore, which she kind of pushes that line a lot. Anyways, that was the last killer in this category, and we're going to move on to the some humanity killers, or killers with some humanity left at least. Now we have the some humanity category, and most of these killers have either done bad things in search of revenge or just other motives that aren't as major as some of the other killers higher up in the list. First off, we have Apostate, which honestly, she's a little bit confusing. Her one and only kill was against like this sort of pastor figure or like religious instructor. So she was advised by some sort of like outside source to kill her religious instructor, and she followed through, which is one of the more primary reasons why she's ranked up a lot higher. She really had a choice here, I think, considering we know very little about the actual influence that made her kill the pastor. It could be the mist, we're not sure though, but she definitely had some sort of say in the action, but followed through anyways. Next we have the Polluted, and he's one of the killers where he's kind of just actively seeking revenge, mostly against humans, because his original home was polluted with like oil and trash and whatnot. And in his lore, after witnessing kind of like the destruction of his home, he goes to the surface or whatever, because he's a fish, and he just kills 2 unsuspecting people. We really don't know how many people he killed after that, but he's taken into the mist after, so I'm going to assume the best and say that he's killed only those 2 people. And overall, I think that's like just the best case scenario for him. He really only seeks revenge against these people because they've destroyed his home. which is really reasonable, and they also destroyed his body. Although it's a little bit, like, unreasonable, he's still fairly justifiable with his actions. Next we have the principal, and once again he's another kind of revenge killer-ish, and this comes from his only daughter ending her own life due to Veronica, and honestly, the only reason why he even attacks the other students is because they're kind of like associated with her, like guilty by association. And the only other person he actually kills is Janitor. The only reason why he's ranked higher than Polluted is because he kind of took the life of somebody who was innocent. He was just, like, the Janitor was just there. He still attacked Veronica and, you know, the other students and whatnot, which I feel like is slightly justifiable, but still, you know, a little bit of a problematic thing. I don't think that would be, like, the first reaction of most people. Well, it's probably the first impulse reaction, but not, like, the best choice. Next up, we have the Empress, and basically, she was a queen who married a man for power, and then was convinced by her secret lesbian lover that they should kill him. And the only reason why she's even ranked here is that, one, she took the life of somebody innocent, and two, it was kind of like a power trip. She really didn't feel too guilty for taking the life, and the only reason she isn't ranked even higher than this is because she was influenced by the lesbian lover. I don't even remember her name, but it was a lot of just influence on her, and also kind of seeking power and, you know, things along that line, which honestly kind of makes sense. Next up on the list we have the Surgeon, and this is, like, honestly a really low ranking. I took a little bit of time to think and honestly just decided to rank him lower than I probably should, mostly because, first off, in his main lore debut, his only actual confirmed kill was Jackson, and two, we actually don't know how many people he's killed, but, you know, it's hard to, like, really figure out the exact number anyways. So, besides his original kill of Jackson, because he assumed that he had actually done something to Arlo, he's taken, like, organs from people. He's killed people in, like alleyways and whatnot, and one of his, like, extra lore bits, I forgot which memory, but one of them. And honestly, that's why he's ranked so high. Originally, I only thought his only kill was Jackson, due to the fact that he thought he'd done something to Arlo, which honestly seemed really justifiable. But now, reading more into it, he's taken the lives of, like, countless other innocent people. Not countless, but, like, a fair number. And now that's kind of just, like, bumped that ranking upwards a bit. The final killer in this category is going to be the boss. He really only has one bit of, like, actual lore, or, like, one memory, but it's still fairly substantial to kind of understanding his lore. Basically, the boss lost IG in, like, the, like, kind of first encounter when the parents died in the car crash, or some other way, I forgot exactly how, and he resorted to crime, which is already kind of a little bit of an issue, a little bit, like, morally incorrect, not counting kills. But then he was attacked by the kind of the mob boss or whatever, which, you know, that's justifiable, that was self-defense. But then at the end of his lore is what, like, really kind of pushed him up into this tier. It says that he really didn't care about killing. He's grown kind of senseless to it. He kills because he can, or kills for business, or whatever. We don't have an exact kill count, but it's described that he stands, like, on piles of bodies, which is considered, you know, a pretty hefty thing. But just considering that, you know, we don't know as much as we do kind of moving into this, I've ranked him a lot lower than I should, just because we aren't exactly sure what his motives are, and we're giving little insight onto what exactly kind of happens in this gang or mob or whatever. And that was it for this category, and now we're going to move on to the terrible killers. Now we're into the terrible category, and these killers, they've either done, like, bad things with little to no good motives, or overall they just are bad people. First off, we're going to have the idol, and the worst thing he probably did outside of killing 2 people was just be overall very obsessive of Daejong. Of course, he, killed 2 people in cold blood and had very, very little, impact from it, but he also kind of seemed to, want that. He wanted to kill other people besides the 2 in order to separate the world from him and Daejong, which is honestly just, really weird and problematic, and also just, kind of a terrible thing to do, Next, we have Showstopper, and one of her main kind of, morally incorrect things is that she's just very manipulative. In the beginning part of her lore, it says that she uses her body a lot to, get people's attention, get things that she wanted, and next, she takes her kind of position of power in being a sort of actor or theatrics person, and she, kind of just ruins, or tries to ruin Emery Rivera mentally, and obviously, of course, she has killed her boss, and intended to kill even more people, which all of that combined is just kind of awful things to do. Next up we have the Stalker, which I really don't think I need to explain much of her lore too much. First of all, she's kind of obsessed with blades and weaponry, which is a little scary, spooky, She attempts to kill Sarah Lindholm, and then she successfully kills Slasher's family, so Tabitha and the 2 children. And overall, that is just really, just very problematic. That's a horrible thing to do. First of all, killing kids, that's already too far. And then she didn't even really have any motives to kill these people, other than wanting bloodshed. And that's really the extent she goes. Overall, she's just a bad person for virtually no reason. Next up, we have a really big jump, which is Slasher, and first of all, he really doesn't seem that bad when you start to kind of compare him with the other people in this category. He lost his family, wanted to become a vigilante, which he kind of did. He stopped criminals and whatnot, but he really started to like bloodshed and killing people just as a whole, which, is a little bit of an issue, but then eventually he just kind of starts to kill people because he can. His mask fell off one time, and he had to kill a lot of people who were eyewitnesses. And honestly, he said he really didn't care, which is, a little interesting, but it's not my room to kind of judge that. Overall, he's not a good person, but honestly, he's just a killer, He's killed and he's unfazed by it, and I think he kind of fits the killer role perfectly as well as his category. And the final killer in this tier is going to be Banshee. So basically her entire lore is that she lost her sister, and she kind of became this ghost thingamabob. The final killer in this category is going to be the Banshee. Her kind of lore is about how she supposedly thinks that these camp counselors at Camp Clearwater had killed her sister or taken her away or done something to her that she wasn't aware of. This really enraged her, and she decided to take revenge against not only camp counselors but also a bunch of people by massacring people in the kind of the camp. And honestly, this was probably going to be dropped down to, it probably would have been dropped to the tier below this one, so the some humanity tier, if not for the fact that she predeterminedly wanted people to die. This wasn't an act of rage or whatever, it wasn't impulsive. She intended for people to die because she cut the brakes on the buses to watch people die and crash and burn. And honestly, this is what powered her to be at the top of this tier, simply due to the fact that she very much intended for people to be killed in this event. That was it for the killers in the terrible category, and now on to the final killers in the Devilincarnate category. We have 2 killers in this final spot of being the Devilincarnate or whatever, being classified here, and these are just for the characters with the 2 highest kill counts, the just have done some of the worst things in the kind of Daybreak kind of killer cinematic lore. I don't know, something along those lines. First killer in this tier is the Warden, and the main reason he is here is just because of like all the bad things he's done. He has married a woman in order to get like in a position of power, which is like the warden at this woman's prison, and then like after a while he eventually just kills his wife and then frames his daughter to get her put in this prison, which, you know, he never really cared about his daughter, but that's still just another like influencing part of his kind of story. And then not only does he like indirectly kill prisoners, he also like often torments them and makes them feel awful. There really isn't much detail about it, probably because they don't want to write more lore about this guy, but that's their choice. And overall, he's just a really bad person. He's done bad things. He feels very little remorse for what he does, and honestly, I think that just makes him like really good killer material. Killers, I feel like, should be sort of evil in a way. And probably the most evil killer in this game is, in fact, the Watcher. If you've read like any bit of his lore, you probably understand why. So basically, he's just this hacker guy or whatever who kind of dedicated his life to kind of breaching this government or sort of businesses or something like that, breaching their files and taking information. He never really did anything with the information. He treated it more as a game, and when somebody found out about his hacking, it turned into more of a game, until the point where he decided to blow up a building. He killed hundreds of people in the kind of situation, and overall he was just described as a terrorist, which honestly isn't the best title to have as a killer. He's killed and he doesn't even feel remorse for it. He thinks it's fun. He likes the attention he gets from being this evil. Anyways, that was the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more like this in the comments, just like tell me what you think. I really put a lot of time and effort into this, just like reading up on lore, kind of making decisions with the tiering and the rankings, and like just how to kind of organize all of this. And I'd really like to thank my friend who helped me kind of achieve all of this. They really made the amount of effort put into this video like way less, and that helped me out a ton. If you haven't subscribed, do that. I am getting very, very close to 1,000. That would be a substantial goal of mine. And just like let me know how you feeling today or something like that. Gotta get that user interaction. And just have a good day. I'll see you on the... I'll chat you on the chip chat.